Miraculous transformation, Joseph's journey from slave to governor. A divine plan unfolded. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Joseph, the favored son of Jacob, found himself amidst the verdant hills of Canaan. His father had gifted him a splendid coat of many colors, a symbol of both love and envy. Joseph bore dreams that set him apart from his brothers, dreams that foretold his rise above them. Yet, such visions ignited deep-seated resentment within their hearts, turning fraternal affection into bitter envy. Under the blazing sun, as the familial tension simmered, Joseph approached his brothers in the fields. Their disdain for him had morphed into a sinister plot, catalyzed by the very coat that had symbolized their father's favoritism. They seized him, stripped him of his vibrant garment, and cast him into a pit, their hearts hardened against the brother they once knew. In swirling despair, Joseph was pulled from the pit and sold to Midianite traders, who took him to Egypt. The warmth of his father's embrace faded as he was thrust into the cold embrace of slavery. Yet, in the darkness, he clung desperately to faith in Yahweh, trusting that this tumultuous chapter would serve a higher purpose. In the grand house of Potiphar, the captain of Pharaoh's guard, Joseph worked tirelessly. His integrity and diligence shone like a beacon, earning him the favor of his master. Potiphar recognized that Yahweh's hand was upon Joseph, and soon entrusted all his household affairs to the Hebrew slave. But tranquility was a fleeting illusion. Potiphar's wife, captivated by Joseph's grace and handsome features, tempted him to forsake his master and his God. "How can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" Joseph implored, resisting her advances. When her fury erupted, accusing him falsely, Joseph was cast into the depths of a dungeon, his dreams rendered seemingly unreachable, shrouded in shadows of betrayal. In the confines of prison, despair threatened to overwhelm him, yet Joseph remained steadfast in prayer, his spirit undeterred. Divine providence was not absent amid his trials. Soon he met Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker, both troubled by perplexing dreams. Joseph, fortified by the Spirit of God, interpreted their dreams with precision, avoiding bitterness, but instead, revealing divine insight. Yet, as hope flickered like a candle in the wind, the cupbearer returned to Pharaoh but forgot to mention Joseph, leaving him in chains. Another 2 years slipped away into obscurity, but Joseph's faith endured amidst the darkness. Then, one fateful night, Pharaoh was troubled by haunting dreams, cows both plump and thin, ears of grain lush and withered. His wise men failed to provide clarity, and in that moment, the cupbearer's heart sparked with remembrance. There was a Hebrew prisoner who interpreted dreams with divine clarity. "Bring him at once," Pharaoh commanded. Standing before the ruler of Egypt, clothed in humility yet radiating God's favor, Joseph interpreted Pharaoh's dreams, revealing a prophetic warning: 7 years of abundance would be followed by 7 years of famine. "For what was meant for evil, God has intended for good," Joseph declared, his heart resonating with divine purpose. As Pharaoh recognized the wisdom and spirit of God in Joseph, he made a monumental decision. Joseph was to govern over Egypt, second only to Pharaoh himself. Yet, questions echoed in Joseph's mind. Would he maintain his integrity in this appointed role? How would he navigate the complexities of his past and the brothers who once sought his demise? Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select All Notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As Pharaoh bestowed upon Joseph the signet ring, garments of fine linen, and a gold chain, the future lay before him, bathed in opportunity and fraught with the potential for redemption. But of his brothers, the very architects of his suffering, he would have to reconcile within himself the memories of betrayal. How would he fulfill the divine purpose set before him, wrapped in newfound power, and be a beacon of God's grace amid the trials to come? With the weight of the nation on his shoulders, Joseph's unprecedented journey was just beginning, woven into the sacred tapestry of God's redemptive plan. And so it was, in the fullness of time, that Joseph took his place as the governor of the land of Egypt. He went forth from Pharaoh's palace, adorned in fine linen, with the signet ring of authority gleaming upon his hand. A vast responsibility lay before him, for he was now tasked with preparing the nation for the years of famine to come. With the wisdom of God guiding him, Joseph set about organizing the fields of Egypt. He ordered that during the 7 years of plenty, excess grain be collected and stored in granaries throughout the land. Let every city gather its produce, he commanded, for the days of abundance are a gift from the Lord, and we must be wise stewards of his provisions. The people marveled at his foresight, they perceived that the Spirit of the Divine rested upon him. As the harvests yielded bountifully, the granaries filled with grain more than could be counted. Joseph's heart shone with gratitude, for he sensed the hand of Yahweh at work, turning past sorrows into a future filled with hope. Then, when the 7 plentiful years had passed, the long-foretold famine descended upon the land, as Joseph had prophesied. It spread beyond Egypt into the neighboring regions. The cries of the hungry reached the heavens, and fear swept through the nations as they faced the specter of starvation. The leaders of surrounding lands soon turned their eyes toward Egypt, for here, there was food, and hope rested upon the shoulders of Joseph. When Jacob heard that there was grain in Egypt, he spoke to his sons saying, "Why do you look at one another? Behold, I have heard there is food in Egypt, go down there and buy for us, that we may live and not die." Thus, the 10 brothers journeyed forth to seek sustenance, unaware that the brother they had wronged now held the fate of their lives in his hands. As Joseph stood at the gates of the granary, he beheld their faces, and in an instant, the weight of his past crashed upon him. The dreams of his youth returned to the forefront of his mind, and he recognized them as those who once plotted against him. A surge of emotions filled his heart: betrayal, love, and an overwhelming longing to see his father, Jacob. Joseph, concealing his identity, spoke harshly to them, "You are spies. You have come to see the nakedness of the land." The brothers, filled with dread, insisted that they were merely there to buy food. They revealed their lineage, speaking of their father and a younger brother left at home. Conflicting emotions surged as Joseph listened, his heart yearning for his father's safety and for the brother he had never met. Yet he devised a plan: he would test their hearts to discern if they had changed. "You shall not depart from here unless your youngest brother comes here," he declared, watching as despair crossed their faces. In those moments, Joseph withdrew to weep alone, for he realized that even amidst their betrayal, God's grand design had held him close. "Could it truly be that you have meant this for evil, yet God has used it for good?" he reflected, pondering how the threads of his life were intricately woven into the greater tapestry of divine purpose. But who would rescue them, these men who sold their brother? Would they return with Benjamin? And what further trials might await them in this tale of redemption that God was weaving through Joseph's life? As the air grew heavy with expectant silence and fear gripped their hearts, she considered the sovereign plan of the Almighty, a plan that would reach far beyond their wildest imagination. In the days to follow, a revelation awaited that would change not only the course of their lives but the very destiny of a nation. And so the 10 brothers returned to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan, their spirits heavy with the burden of their mission unfulfilled. They recounted to him all that had transpired, saying, "The man, who is lord of the land, spoke harshly to us and treated us as spies." As they spoke, a shadow of despair enveloped Jacob, for he felt the weight of loss tighten its grip upon him. "Upon me has come all this evil," Jacob cried, "for I have already lost Joseph, and now you would take Benjamin also?" His heart was broken, and the thought of losing another son filled him with great lament. The brothers pleaded with their father, but Jacob's heart was set against letting Benjamin go. "My son shall not go down with you," he declared, "for his brother is dead, and he alone is left." Time passed, and with it, the famine grew ever more dire. The grain in their storehouse began to dwindle, and Jacob saw the need for bold action. "Go again, buy us a little food," he urged, yet they grimaced, recalling the stern warning of the governor. We cannot return without our youngest brother, for he said, You shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. At last, Judah spoke, his voice resolute. Send the lad with me, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die, for we and our little ones must be preserved. Jacob's heart wrestled within him, torn between fear and the need for survival. After much deliberation, he relented, saying, If I am bereaved, I am bereaved. He prepared provisions for their journey, giving them a gift, fine fruits of the land and double silver for the grain. And so, the brothers set forth once more, bearing their father's love and the weight of their past upon their shoulders. As they approached the gates of Egypt, their spirits quivered with uncertainty. The memories of their betrayal haunted them, yet they knew they must face the man who held their fates. They arrived at Joseph's house, and when he saw Benjamin with them, his heart swelled with compassion. In that moment, the veil of silence that had covered his identity threatened to break. Joseph ordered that a feast be prepared, yet great was his struggle. Seated at table, the brothers were both in awe and trembling, for they were served according to their birthright, Benjamin receiving 5 times more than the rest. They marveled among themselves, whispering, What is this that God has done to us? The meal concluded, and Joseph's heart yearned. As he sent them away, he devised one last test. He instructed his steward to place his silver cup in Benjamin's sack. Little did they know that divine providence governed their steps, tying the past to the present. As the brothers traveled a short distance, they were pursued, and the officer found the cup in Benjamin's possession. In anguish, they returned, faces beset with despair, knowing that all hope might be lost. Upon arriving, Joseph's visage was masked in authority. What deed is this that you have done? He thundered, and the brothers, powerless, fell before him, filled with dread. In that climactic moment, Joseph could contain himself no longer. He cried out, I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? Tremors of recognition and disbelief coursed through the room, and with a flood of emotions, all that had been hidden was unveiled. For in this moment, Joseph understood that God was revealing his plan, a plan woven through the fabric of their lives, redeeming not only the past but transforming futures. The hearts of brothers that once harbored hatred now stood ready for reconciliation. But as they gazed upon the transformed face of him they had betrayed, would they embrace the depth of God's mercy? Would they fathom the full measure of their brother's grace? And thus, the true story of redemption began to unfold, a revelation echoing throughout the ages, a divine reminder that what man intends for evil, God can turn to good. And as Joseph revealed his identity, the air grew thick with disbelief and wonder. His brothers lay prostrate before him, echoes of their past transgressions reverberating in their minds. Joseph, seeing their fear and heartache, quickly spoke, Do not be distressed or angry with yourselves for selling me here, for God sent me before you to preserve life. His voice carried the weight of divine purpose, for what they once saw as betrayal, God transformed into a means of salvation. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years, he continued, and there are yet 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on earth and to keep alive for you many survivors. The brothers, hearing these words, began to grasp the magnitude of God's sovereign hand, even amidst their darkest deeds. Genesis 45 verses 5-7. Joseph's heart burned with compassion, and he sought to comfort them. Hurry and go up to my father and say to him, Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me Lord of all Egypt, come down to me, do not tarry. You shall dwell in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near me, you, and your children and your children's children, and your flocks and your herds, and all you have. The offer was not merely an invitation, it was an assurance of provision and protection, a testimony of reconciliation. Genesis 45 verses 9-10. With hasty steps, the brothers returned to Canaan, hearts filled with a strange mixture of joy and fear. Jacob could scarcely contain his astonishment when he heard the words of his sons and saw the wagons laden with the gifts from Joseph. It is enough, he declared, Joseph my son is still alive. I will go and see him before I die. The promise of reunion ignited a flicker of hope in Jacob's heart, extinguished by years of sorrow. Genesis 45 verses 27 to 28. As the caravan journeyed toward Egypt, the Lord spoke to Jacob in a vision, saying, "Jacob, Jacob." He answered, "Here I am." And God reassured him, "I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for there I will make you into a great nation." In this sacred moment, God reaffirmed his covenant with Jacob, providing reassurance of his sovereign plan that stretched far beyond individual earthly strife. Genesis 46 verses 2 to 3. Meanwhile, as Joseph awaited the return of his family, he marveled at the wonder of divine providence. He understood that the cruel chains of his earlier life had forged a path that led to a purpose far greater than himself. The tears that flowed from his eyes were not just for past grievances but for the joy of future redemption. Indeed, he mused, God has orchestrated every event for his glory. As the family reunited, the hearts that once bore hatred now beat together in an overwhelming current of forgiveness and love. In the embrace of brother to brother, father to son, layers of shame and regret were peeled away, revealing the light of reconciliation and divine grace. Yet, amidst this joy, an unspoken tension lingered, a thread of divine mystery weaving deeper into the fabric of their lives. For God had not only restored a family but had also set in motion a plan that would echo through generations, shaping the very course of his chosen people. What then would the future hold for them, and how would God's unfolding purpose further reveal itself in the days to come? As they gathered together in Egypt, the answer hung in the balance, pregnant with expectation ready to unfold just as the Lord had ordained. And so it came to pass that Jacob, with his sons at his side, journeyed down to Egypt, bearing the burden of years lost and the joy of reunion. As they approached the land of Goshen, a divine presence shrouded them, and they could not fathom the depths of God's design or the richness of his blessings yet to be unveiled. Genesis 46 verse 28. Joseph, learning of their arrival, made haste in his chariot, his heart racing with anticipation. When at last he saw his father, the tears that had once been shed in grief now cascaded down his face in rivers of joy. They embraced father and son, Jacob and Joseph, overwhelmed by the providence of God and the dreams that had come to fruition against all odds. "Now let me die," Jacob said, "since I have seen your face and know that you are still alive." Genesis 46 verse 30. In the days that followed, Joseph settled his family in Goshen, and he spoke to Pharaoh, describing the importance of bringing his family into the land where they would flourish. Pharaoh welcomed them, offering provisions and land, stating, "Let them live in the land of Goshen, and if you know any able men among them, put them in charge of my livestock." Genesis 47 verse 6. Joseph instructed his brothers on how to present themselves to Pharaoh. They were to say, "We are shepherds. We have come to sojourn in the land, for there is no pasture for your servants' flocks, for the famine is severe in the land of Canaan." Genesis 47 verse 3. His words were wise, for he knew the Egyptian disdain for shepherds would shield them from unwanted scrutiny. As the weeks turned to months, the family grew accustomed to their new life, yet, a shadow loomed upon the world outside, for famine gripped the land, and the people cried out for sustenance. Joseph, with a discerning heart, gathered provisions, ensuring that the people of Egypt were cared for. His wisdom shone, and the king's heart was moved by the dedication of his servant. "You have saved many lives," Pharaoh said, acknowledging the marvel of Joseph's administration. Genesis 47 verse 25. However, amid the flourishing of his family in Goshen, Joseph sensed a stirring in his spirit. Beneath the surface of abundance lay a divine urgency. He recalled the dreams of his youth, where his brothers bowed before him, alluding to a greater calling upon his life, the preservation of a nation and the unfolding of God's eternal plan through Israel's descendants. As he gazed over the lands of Egypt, his thoughts turned to the family of his father, the trajectory of their lineage, and the unfolding mystery of God's divine purpose that lingered on the horizon. One evening, as he pondered over the scrolls of his forefathers, a thought struck him: the promise of God made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that through them, he would bless all nations, to bring forth one who would save the world. Joseph's heart quickened. he sensed the weight of responsibility that had been laid upon him, greater than simply feeding a nation. And so, he resolved in his heart to seek the Lord, for Joseph knew that guidance was needed in the days ahead. The ripples of their past actions would resonate, and the road ahead was fraught with challenges yet unseen. As he prepared to face what lay ahead, the Spirit of the Lord whispered within him, "Behold, I am doing a new thing, now it springs forth, do you not perceive it?" Isaiah 43 verse 19. For the days to come would reveal the fullness of God's sovereign plan, a tapestry crafted from dreams, trials, and unexpected turns, wisdom to lead his people and prepare for a time of great testing. What profound revelations would emerge from the shadows of their past, and how might Joseph's journey echo through eternity? The answer lay ahead, entwined in the unfolding purpose of the Almighty. And the years in Egypt flowed as the river's current, a mixture of prosperity and trial, as the famine stretched its grip across the lands. The cries of the hungry filled the air, piercing the very soul of the nation. Joseph, ever vigilant, watched as the people dispersed into the streets, despair etched upon their faces, bringing forth a profound understanding of stewardship and mercy. In his position of power, he dealt wisely with the Egyptians, gathering grain in the years of plenty and distributing it in times of need. The Lord had endowed him with foresight that his heart might break for the suffering of others. And as he administered the provisions, a thought gripped him: was this not part of the greater purpose, the very fulfillment of the promise spoken to his ancestors? In accordance with the words spoken by Abraham in days of old, the life of Joseph became a lifeline to many, a savior in their time of need, Genesis 41 verse 30. Meanwhile, Jacob, though relieved to be in the land of Goshen, felt the weight of uncertainty for his family. Having settled them safely, he often gathered his sons and spoke of the legacy of their forefathers. "No, my sons," he urged, "the God of our fathers made a covenant with Abraham and Isaac. He promised prosperity to our offspring, yet they must walk in his ways." Genesis 48 verse 15. The lessons of faith mingled with the duties of provision, and Jacob's heart remained steadfast upon the promise yet to be fully realized. One fateful day, word came to Joseph that his brothers were journeying from Canaan, driven by hunger to seek aid, unaware of their brother's incredible rise. Joseph, struck by sorrow and hope, dressed in his royal attire, prepared to encounter them once more. As he approached their company, his heart quivered with trepidation. The pain of the past mingled with the love for his family. In his eyes they beheld a ruler, yet in his heart dwelt the boy they had cast aside, the one they had rejected. "Brothers," he addressed them, concealing his identity, the weight of forgiveness heavy upon his shoulders. They trembled before him, fear gripping them as they searched for mercy in the eyes of the one they had wronged. "Where have you come from?" he inquired, his tone deceptively calm. "From the land of Canaan," they answered, grasping at words of explanation. "We seek food, for the famine is severe." And what joy it would bring him to reveal who he was. Yet, wisdom dictated caution, for he must first ensure their hearts had changed. He spoke harshly, accusing them of being spies, to which they protested, revealing their father's plight and the full truth of their family. "We are 12 brothers," they recounted, "and the youngest is with our father, and one is no more." Genesis 42 verse 13. At these words, Joseph's heart sparked with hope but also sorrow. For in their confessions lay the seeds of reconciliation, and within him stirred the reminder of God's abundant grace. He knew he must test them further, for it was through trials they would find redemption. Concealing his emotion, he declared, "Your words are true. You shall not see my face until your youngest brother comes to me." Genesis 42 verse 15. Days passed, and in the chambers of his heart, he pondered the unfolding drama, the plan of God weaving together threads of confession, forgiveness, and redemptive love. In these moments of tension, the depth of the sovereign tapestry was becoming clear. Each sorrow and joy converged with divine purpose, each act leading toward a greater unveiling. And even as the echoes of the past reverberated through his bones, readying for the forthcoming revelation, Joseph grasped the truth resonating with his spirit: "Behold, in this very hour, the hearts of men will be tested, and the mercy of God will shine forth what will emerge from the valley of despair? The answer remained cloaked in divine mystery, waiting for the appointed time to reveal the culmination of generations and God's unfathomable design. And it came to pass that Jacob, hearing of the words Joseph had spoken, was greatly distressed, his spirit heavy with fear for the life of his son Benjamin. He could not bear the thought of sending his youngest son into the hands of the ruler who had spoken so harshly. So he called to his sons, saying, "You have bereaved me of my children. Joseph is no more, and Simeon is locked away, now you would take Benjamin. I will not send him with you, for his life is precious to me." Genesis 42 verse 36. However, the famine continued its relentless advance, and the provisions they had received began to dwindle. The brothers whispered amongst themselves, their voices laced with urgency. "We must return to Egypt, or we will perish, not only ourselves but our father as well," they spoke, the tension palpable among them. Reuben, ever bold, added, "You may put my sons to death if I do not bring him back to you. Trust in me, and let me take him." Genesis 42 verse 37. But Jacob remained steadfast in his lament, weighing the lives that hung in the balance, knowing that the path forward was fraught with uncertainty. Then, Judah spoke, "What can we do? The man clearly warned us that we could not see his face unless we brought our brother. If we delay any longer, we will face death. Bring Benjamin with us, and we will plead for mercy. If he perishes, we will bear the consequences together." Genesis 43 verse 8. In his heart, Jacob was torn, yet understanding the pressing need, he relented at last. "If it must be so, then do this, take the best of what we have to offer, and go. And may the Almighty grant you mercy before the man that he may release Simeon and allow Benjamin to return." Genesis 43 verse 14. Thus, the brothers set forth once more, laden with gifts and the weight of dread. As they journeyed toward Egypt, Joseph awaited their return, his heart a tempest of emotions, a mixture of hope and trepidation. Would this reunion, wrought by time and trial, reveal the true state of their hearts? Upon their arrival, Joseph commanded his steward, saying, "Bring them to my house and prepare a feast, for they come in peace." Genesis 43 verse 16. As they were ushered into the governor's presence, the brothers were taken aback, their minds racing with fear, for they believed they were summoned for punishment due to the silver they had found in their sacks. But Joseph, overwhelmed by love yet keeping his identity veiled, inquired of their peace, and the wellness of his father. "Is your father well, the old man of whom you spoke? Is he still alive?" Genesis 43 verse 27. With joy and reverence, they responded, "Your servant our father is well, he is still alive." And as they spoke, Joseph's heart swelled, tears misting his eyes as he turned away to compose himself, for he yearned to embrace them. Then, the moment of revelation drew near, and he directed Simeon to be brought forth, a sacred act of reconciliation beginning anew. The meal was served, and as they sat in astonishment at their positions dining with their brother and the governor of Egypt, their hearts slowly began to change, portents of redemption flickering within. As they feasted, Joseph observed their interactions, noting the transformation taking root among them. He marveled at the ways of the Lord, who uses even the darkness to illuminate the path toward forgiveness and love, preparing for the resolution of a family torn apart. Yet unbeknownst to them, the ultimate purpose of God still loomed ahead, whispering through the hearts of men, but what they could not see was the divine orchestration at hand, a plan woven through pain, that they might be transformed in the fire of adversity and destined for a greater promise. And it came to pass that as they ate, Joseph discreetly watched their faces, longing to know if true change had come upon their hearts. Each mouthful filled him with emotion, the fragrant dishes reminding him of home, of his father, of Benjamin, and of the sorrow of their past sin. The brothers spoke amongst themselves, sharing laughter, yet beneath it lay the heaviness of unspoken guilt. As the wine flowed, Joseph, revealing his heart's turmoil, paused and listened to their words. He could see the shadows of regret marred by their laughter, the light of remorse mingling with joy, a juxtaposition of hearts yearning for reconciliation yet burdened with the weight of history. Joseph beckoned, calling for Benjamin to be brought forth, longing to embrace the brother he had yet to reunite with face to face. Then, when Benjamin entered the room, Joseph's heart leapt within him, for he desired to hold the child of his mother, Rachel. "May God be gracious to you, my little brother," he spoke softly, though none could hear, for his voice was choked with emotion. Yet he concealed his true identity, pondering how he might test the sincerity of their transformation. In the midst of the feast, Joseph commanded that the brothers' sacks be filled with grain and that silver be returned in secret. He placed a special portion for Benjamin, the finest morsel, as a sign of his affection. "This shall be a test," he resolved, "for I shall observe how they respond to favoritism, reflecting upon their past." As the brothers departed, having rejoiced in the unexpected kindness shown to them, Joseph watched with a bittersweet heart. What about Simeon's fate? They mused among themselves, each menacing thought stirring old fears of betrayal. "This man is treating us kindly, perhaps to enslave us all over again. How can we trust?" The word struck Joseph deeply. When they arrived at their father's house, they recounted the miraculous hospitality of the governor and the grace shown toward them. Yet as Jacob inspected their sacks, a sudden gasp of horror filled his chest, for in Benjamin's sack was the governor's silver cup. "What is this? You have led me into despair again," he cried, his voice trembling with anguish. "Fate has conspired against us," Judah declared, standing resolute among his brothers. "But let us not despair. We will return, and we will confront this governor, pledging ourselves even unto servitude to save our brother." Thus, emboldened by desperation and love, the brothers resolved to journey back to Egypt, where they would stand before Joseph, although hidden from their eyes. They did not know how their hearts would be weighed or the purpose behind this test that lingered in the air. Through trials, the brothers were being drawn together, exposed to the fire of their past, the wounds of betrayal, the longing for forgiveness. In their hearts, God was stirring a deep repentance that had remained dormant. And as Joseph prepared for their return, he prayed silently, "Lord, let their hearts be softened, let them find the courage to confess the shame that lies within." For herein lay the transforming power of the Almighty. Through this familial trial, they would meet their deeper selves and encounter the face of the one they once forsook. A divine reckoning was at hand, as the stage was set for an unveiling of secrets. But little did they understand that woven into this narrative was the grand design of providence, for God's sovereign plan was being unveiled, a plan that would not only reconcile a family but redeem a nation. What they did not yet see, Joseph pondered, was that the very struggles they faced were but thread in the tapestry of their destiny, where forgiveness flows from the depths of pain. And it came to pass that the brothers returned to the land of Egypt, their hearts heavy with trepidation and their minds clouded by uncertainty. Fear coursed through them, for they knew not how the governor would receive them upon their second arrival. As they approached the great city, dread settled like a shroud over their hearts, for they bore with them not only their plea for mercy but the guilt of their past. "Surely this is the end for us," Reuben murmured, his eyes cast down. "Our sin has returned to require its toll." But Judah, emboldened by the love he bore for Benjamin, replied vehemently, "Nay. We must confess all, for it is our only hope. We faced our father with truth, and now, we must do the same. Our fates rest in the hands of the governor." When they entered the governor's palace, they were met with an ambience of opulence, the air thick with the aroma of spices and meats, yet their hearts palpitated with dread. Approaching the grand hall, they saw him, seated upon a throne of authority, his countenance a mask of calm amidst the storm brewing within them. Joseph, perceiving them from afar, summoned them to come closer. The brothers trembled, for they had come laden with their plea. "Why have you returned?" he inquired, his voice steady yet resonating with unspoken might. "What do you seek?" "Great Lord," Judah spoke forth with trembling lips, "we have returned not to reproach, but to plead for the life of our brother, whom we love dearly. We are innocent of any wrongdoing, yet we find ourselves ensnared in a fate we cannot escape. The silver cup found in his sack is a grievous misfortune, and we beseech you, let us be your servants in his stead." With a heart full of hidden anguish, Joseph studied their faces, searching for the remnants of the brothers once so hardened by sin. "What you believe to be misfortune was ordained from above," he spoke aloud, though the depth of his meaning lay veiled. "I will not take the innocent, for I will keep the one from whom the cup was taken. Let the rest of you return to your father in peace." At this declaration, the anguish among the brothers erupted. "No, we cannot leave him," they cried, tears streaming down their faces, sorrow etched into every line. "We cannot return to our father without him. Our father's heart is bound to his. Take us all, we are but humble servants." Joseph's heart swelled within him. In this moment of desperation, he witnessed the metamorphosis of their spirits. The remorse that had once brought them shame now bore the fruit of humility and unity. "Consider this," Joseph spoke once more, softening his voice, "your desire to uphold your brother speaks of a change unwitnessed before in your hearts. You have borne the weight of your betrayal, and now grief has wrought compassion." As he spoke, Joseph's mask slipped, revealing a flicker of his true identity. "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt." The revelation hung heavy in the air, a weighty silence descending as realization dawned upon them. Confusion and shock cascaded through the brothers, souls pierced by disbelief, as Joseph witnessed their transformation in full bloom. "Do not fear, for God sent me before you to preserve life," Joseph continued, compassion pouring forth. "The divine designs from our past sorrows point to a future filled with promise, the vivid strokes of God's providence allowing for restoration and reconciliation." Thus, the brothers fell into deep weeping, reconciling the threads of their fractured past, and a great peace enveloped them. They were drawn into a profound moment of unity and healing, as unveiled truths began to weave their brokenness into a tapestry of redemption. But as Joseph spoke of the hope to come, he could not yet unveil the fullness of God's sovereign plan, how through them a nation would arise, and a covenant would ultimately flourish. For God's magnificent orchestration had only just begun to dance upon the chords of history. And so it was that Joseph, having revealed his identity to his brothers, stood before them with a heart full of compassion and grace. Their faces, once twisted with guilt and fear, now reflected the light of remorse and the dawning of hope. "Come near to me," Joseph urged, and as they gathered close, he embraced them, tears mingling with laughter. The dark shadows of betrayal were cast aside, replaced by the brilliance of reconciliation. "I am your brother, Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt," he reaffirmed, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. "Do not be distressed or angry with yourselves for selling me here, for God sent me before you to preserve life." His words echoed with divine truth, revealing the intricate threads of God's providence woven through their lives. In the divine tapestry, what was meant for evil had been transformed into a vessel of salvation. The brothers, trembling yet filled with awe, began to grasp the magnitude of Joseph's declaration. "You mean that all this," Judah breathed, "was for our deliverance?" Joseph nodded, affirming, "Indeed, for the famine has been in the land for 2 years, and there are yet 5 years without plowing or harvest. God sent me before you to prepare a remnant and to save many lives." The brothers' hearts swelled with relief and gratitude, their burdens lifted as they beheld the redemptive purpose unfolding before them. Joseph instructed them, "Hurry and go up to my father and say to him, 'Thus says your son, Joseph, God has made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down to me, do not tarry. You shall dwell in the land of Goshen, for there I will provide for you.'" His voice conveyed the weight of divine assurance, an invitation to dwell in safety and abundance, away from the famine that devoured Canaan. And as the brothers departed, laden with gifts and renewed hope, a profound joy enveloped their hearts. They raced back to Jacob, their father, excited to tell him the marvelous news. "Joseph is alive," they proclaimed, their voices erupting with the beauty of what had been lost yet found. The aching heart of Jacob stirred within him, hope igniting as he heard their words. "It is enough," he exclaimed, "Joseph my son is still alive. I will go and see him before I die." Thus, the caravan journeyed toward Egypt, driven by faith and the promise of reunion. As they approached, Jacob received a vision, for God spoke to him, "Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for there I will make you into a great nation." The assurance of God's presence accompanied them as they traversed the land, and a holy purpose blossomed along their path. When Jacob finally beheld Joseph, father and son fell into a powerful embrace, tears of joy washing over decades of sorrow. "Now let me die," Jacob said, overwhelmed, "since I have seen your face and know that you are still alive." In the land of Goshen, they flourished, tending to their flocks and forging a new life under God's provision. The family, once fractured, was now united in a testament of God's unwavering faithfulness. Generations passed, and Joseph became a father to two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, names that would echo through the annals of history as pillars of strength in a nation. As time flowed, the descendants of Jacob multiplied rapidly, they filled the land. But with their increase, the memory of Joseph began to fade from Egyptian hearts, and a new Pharaoh arose who knew not the good Joseph had done for the land. Yet Joseph's legacy remained, a foundation built on forgiveness and faith, a beacon for those who would remember. And in that land, amidst the struggles of bondage that would soon befall them, a divine promise echoed, a promise of deliverance and hope that would rise from despair. For God's plans are always unfolding beyond the immediate horizon, and through the tapestry of trials and triumphs, His faithful love would carry generations into the arms of redemption. Thus ends Joseph's journey, a parallel to the greater story God weaves through each of his children, a continued testament that in the depths of suffering, there lies a seed of glory, waiting to bloom in the fullness of His grace. Now, dear friends, as you ponder the incredible narrative of Joseph and his family, I invite you to respond. Subscribe immediately to stay connected to God's Word, for you need to stay in touch with these powerful biblical stories that transform lives. Leave a like now to spread the truth of God's faithfulness through the algorithm, for this is the moment to help others understand His mercy. Comment below with your reflections on this story and how it has impacted your faith journey. Let us hear how God speaks to each of us. And please, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth today. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony of redemption and hope. Only true believers understand the importance of lifting each other toward the light of God's love through our actions.